wonderful, yeah, how the light shines. The Lord has been good to me. You see, he brought me from a mighty long way. Oh, he gave me food and shelter. I thank him for his grace. I'm gonna keep my hand in the master's hand and never, never go astray. Yes, I'm trusting in the Lord. You see, I'm walking in the light, beautiful light. Ain't it wonderful how the light shines? Walking in the light, beautiful light. Ain't it wonderful? Yeah, how the light shines. Amen.
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 Thank you, Sister Belton. Beautiful voice. I love that song. That takes me way back to our district choir years ago. Love that song. Thank you to all of the participants so far in the program. I truly, truly thank you. Truly, truly thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I've said that twice, but you can't imagine what has all happened today. Anything the enemy can do. And you know, sometimes things happen and it's not the enemy. Sometimes it's just things that just happen. But we thank God for his power and for his might and for his stability and enabling us to go through everything and still remember that we are children of the Most High God. To our elder, my pastor, to clergy, lay members, our visitors and friends, it is with great joy that I join you this evening for worship. And again, I'd like to thank you. I keep saying it because a lot of people didn't wake up this morning. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world today. And yes, the media does try to scare us, but if you work in the medical profession, you are aware of the fact that there are actually a lot of sickness, a lot of illnesses, and people are actually dying and leaving this earth. So I am grateful to be here. Our focus passage for this evening is Matthew 5:6, as my oldest son read. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. And the key word there is thirst. And the second key word is hunger. I'd like to speak with you a moment about something I've been hearing for the last few days. And it was only if you're thirsty. And I kept thinking, okay, God, what are you trying to say? I know there's a song that has those words in it. I know it talks about thirst in the Bible, but I just kept hearing only if you're thirsty. And I kept listening to see if there was more to what he was trying to say, to make sure that I got the complete passage of what God was trying to say. However, I would just still hear only if you're thirsty. And then I hear if you're thirsty. I would hear in all different kinds of ways with different kind of meanings, but it was the same thing over and over and over. Only if you're thirsty. Well, I'm sure that was for me and probably for some of you as well. Now, I have to tell you about Johnny. Johnny was sick with a sore throat, and that meant that he couldn't go to church services. He knew it was going to be something special, and he enjoyed going to church. He was very disappointed, and his throat hurt him tremendously. It was Palm Sunday, and he knew that he had to stay home with his sitter. He could hardly wait until his parents got back to tell him what happened. How did it go? He asked his parents. And why do you have those palm branches? Oh, this is what they used when Jesus was passing by. They waved them and held them over his head. Well, sighed Johnny, he would show up the Sunday I decided not to be there. Now, think about that for a minute. Sounds like his church was not thirsty. What does it mean to be thirsty? The definition says feeling a need to drink. Another says having or showing a strong desire for something. Now, as Christians, that desire to thirst should be to serve and praise and please the Lord, to follow his commandments, to do his will. To thirst after righteousness means wanting to live according to God's will instead of the world's will. He has given us the assurance that he that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believe on me shall never thirst. But only if you're thirsty. Only if you're thirsty. You see, if you've ever been out walking in the summer heat or exercising in hot air or busy running around at work, you're bound to get thirsty. Perspiration or sweating is the major way our body regulates its temperature. Water is released through glands in the skin and it evaporates off the skin and the body is cool. During exercise, muscles heat up more, so more sweat is needed. Cooling is a major function of sweating. Because you have now lost bodily fluids through the sweating process, you become thirsty. To counteract that loss of bodily fluids, you now have to drink water, or as they drink now, the fruit-infused waters. You drink until you are no longer thirsty, or your thirst is quenched. But you only drink if you're thirsty. Have you ever been hungry for something and didn't know what you were hungry for? Have you ever been so hungry that you ate, but that wasn't what you really wanted? It wasn't what you were hungry for. So it really didn't satisfy you. It may have filled you up, but it didn't satisfy you. You still have that longing for something, not quite knowing what it is. You may have been hungry, but were you thirsty? I started thinking of what it was to be really thirsty or really hungry. I thought of Mark 2:4. The news of Jesus coming to town caused many to come from all over, even Syria, bringing their ill, the sick and the lame, some demon possessed and all kinds of diseases. And to Jesus, they brought them so that he could heal them. And he did. Four men carrying a man that was paralyzed tried to make their way through the crowd. The crowd was too thick. So the men climbed to the roof, tore a hole through the roof, and lowered the man down to where Jesus was. And Jesus healed him too. Now, they were thirsty to cut a hole in the roof, to lower the man down to be healed by Jesus. Then there's Zacchaeus. He was a notorious tax collector. He was a wealthy man, and his job was to raise the taxes, collect them, and then raise the taxes again. Needless to say, he was not a popular man, unliked by most people. But he heard about Jesus and wanted to see him. Zacchaeus was a man of short stature, very short, so short and much that when the people gathered in the crowd, he couldn't see. So in his eagerness, he climbed up a tree to get a better look. He was thirsty. Jesus saw him, and when he saw him, he saw in him what others didn't see. Jesus invited himself to Zacchaeus' house, and what a wonderful change came over him. Thank God for his grace. When was the last time you went out of your way to see Jesus or to do something for him or for his kingdom? Then there was the woman with the issue of blood. Everybody remembers that story. For 12 whole years, she bled uncontrollably. She had been from doctor to doctor, spent so much money trying to resolve her health situation. It even became worse over the years. During that era, if you were bleeding, you were considered unclean, and anyone around you were considered unclean as well. Needless to say, she was alone in her distress, unable to go to the temple or to be in the presence of others. There she was, alone, ill, sad, distressed, but she was hungry. She was really hungry. In her distress, she wanted to see Jesus. There again, the crowds had gathered to see him, and she knew that he could heal her. She was so determined to see him, to ask for his healing, and yet the crowd pressed in closer and closer. She had so much faith in the power of Jesus that she felt if she could just touch the hem of his garment, she would be healed. She was thirsty. She crawled her way to him, and as soon as she touched him, she was healed. Jesus knew at that moment that someone with undeniable faith had touched him. Daughter, your faith has healed you. This is what Jesus said to her. You see the determination in the power of Christ if you're thirsty. You see the grace of God if you're thirsty. You see the healing power of Christ if you're thirsty. I'm thirsty. Are you thirsty? Are you going to go into this year not thirsty for the promises of God? Are you going to walk into this year not knowing that there is a God, and that if you utilize your faith and your belief in him, that he can do the miraculous for you, just like he did for them? I'm thirsty. If you think about Psalm 107, you think of the assurance that God gives us in his word. It reads, some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way into a city to dwell in, hungry and thirsty. Their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from Jesus' glory and delivered them from their distress. If you find that you're not thirsty, get into his word. You can start a little at a time so you won't feel overwhelmed. Ask God to give you knowledge and understanding. Develop your prayer life. If you speak to him sincerely, he will answer you. But you have to listen and you have to follow the instructions. Set aside some time to spend with him, not asking for anything, but just thanking him for all he's done. Get thirsty for God. He's waiting on you. Get thirsty for God. We'll be led in prayer at this time by Reverend Carmelita Freeman.